Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So in the last class we were studying the 184th and the 185th verse of the Vivekachudamani, where we found the discussion on the Vijnanamaya Kosha has started. And we found that buddhi, the determinative faculty of the mind, the mind has four faculties. As per the faculties, as per the way they operate, the mind is divided into four parts. What are they? This mana, buddhi, chitta and ahankara. So chitta is the storehouse of all the impressions in the mind. And mana is that faculty in which from all those impressions which are stored in the chitta, from that, as per the stimuli, the particular perceptions evolve, come out from the chitta. The function of the mind which brings out those piecemeal perceptions from the chitta to our perceptual knowledge is the function of the mana. And what's the buddhi? Now all those perceptions which come up in our mind, in mana, they all conglomerate together and present that wholesome thing to the buddhi. And buddhi again, there is another storehouse that all the piecemeal perceptions in the composite form constitutes this universe. Just like the flower, the redness, its shape, its fragrance, its touch, all these piecemeal perceptions, when we bring them together and present it to the mind, again the mind has the storehouse of all those conglomerates with particular nama and rupa. So now when it is presented to the buddhi, that is nishchayatmika, that all these piecemeal perceptions were presented by the mind to the buddhi, and buddhi is the nishchayatmika. It will determine that yes, from the storehouse the impression comes that it is a red rose, and this gives us the perceptual knowledge. And not only that, the moment that the concept of that red rose comes, another faculty of the mind stuff, ahankara, that comes in conjunction with the perceptual knowledge. There are two types of vrittis. One is this, the jnana vritti, which speaks of the perceptual knowledge, and another is the ahankara vritti, the ego. These two interact to result in response. As we were saying in the last class, as per my temperament, if I am a devotee, I may pluck the flower and keep it in the altar, offer it to the divine in the altar. If I am just a person with a sense of beauty, the same flower I need not offer to the divine. I may prepare a nice vase and keep it in the living space of my house. Or if I like to maintain this nice garden, I am a person who is a gardener, then I won't pluck the flower at all. I most probably will go and nurture the plant so that I can get more beautiful flowers. So the responses are different as per my temperament. So this temperament comes to picture when the aham, the idea that I am this body-mind complex, that has came into picture. So this aham vritti and the jnana vritti. The jnana vritti is the product of the buddhi, and aham vritti is a product of this ahankara, the faculty of called ahankara in the mind. This Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, this Ahankara faculty and the Jnana Vritti from the Buddhi faculty, these two together will be resulting in all the responses, all the actions which we are doing. And now, after describing this, what's the Vijnanamaya Kosha is? The three things. One is the organs of perception, and then the Buddhi and the Ahankara Vritti. These three together constitutes the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So that we were discussing in the last class. So the function of the mana is to generate all the piecemeal perceptions which in our scripture has been spoken of as tanmatras, tat matra. That only that example which we give again and again, that all the perceptions which we have is not as a whole. That the flower is outside there, as a whole it is not perceived. All the perceptions are piecemeal perceptions. The redness is perceived in the mind, in the so-called color perception center. Its texture is perceived in some other center. Its smell is perceived in some other center. Its touch is perceived in some other center. All this together now conglomerates in the mind to give a wholesome picture. That example which we gave, that when you are watching the movie, just see that in the screen the character is speaking. We have a feeling that the character is speaking, but actually what is happening in the screen, there is no sound there. Just the movement of the lips is there in the screen. The sound is coming from the sound box at some other place. This too mixes up in the mind and is presented to the Buddhi, and then the Buddhi, what it determines, oh, that character is speaking. But actually that character is not speaking. So that's how we will understand that how all the perceptions come together to create the impression of the bhutas, pancha bhutas, all the conglomerates which I see in this universe, for which I have designated a particular name, for a particular form, and for artha kriya karitra, for its particular purpose. Just say a necklace made of gold. It has a particular shape, and it is used for a particular purpose that we used to adorn ourselves by wearing it around our neck. And then there's a purpose and its shape, and then we give a name. It is called necklace. So this is how I designate all the things in this world. And these things happens with the help of these three faculties. The Ahankara Vritti, which is the product of Ahankara, and then Jnana Vritti from Buddhi. These two mixes up, and this Buddhi, how it forms from the mana. That, as we told, that the organs of perception is common to both mind as well as to the Buddhi. The mind presents all the piecemeal perceptions, which is the product of all the organs of perceptions. As in the last class also we were indicating, the organs of perception is not there in the external body. This eye is not the organ of perception. It is called in Sanskrit golakas. Golakas means apparatus. These are just the apparatus. The real organ of perceptions are in the mind. So all the perceptions are happening in the mind. So all the perceptions which are happening in the mind, that actually activates the mana, and then the piecemeal perceptions happen, and all those piecemeal perceptions are presented to the Buddhi, and then the Buddhi conglomerates them to give the perception of the whole, of the thing itself, of the composite thing. That's the function of the Buddhi. And then because of Ahankara we react to it in particular ways, and this Buddhi, Ahankara and the organs of perceptions, this Jnanendriyas, these three constitutes the Vijnanamaya Kosha. So now in the 86th and in the 186th and the 187th verse, the Kriyavat, the agency of Vijnanamaya Kosha will be described. That how it is operating itself. So let us go to the 186th verse and the 187th verse to understand the agency of Vijnanamaya Kosha, the way it acts, the Kriyavatva, that what are the things which constitutes its agency, its action. That will be spoken of in the 186th and in the 187th verse. So let's read the 186th verse first. Anadi kalaha ayam aham swabhava jiva samasta vyavahara vora karoti karmani api purvavasana punyani apunyani chatat falani. And this 186, the 187th verse is a continuation of the 186th verse. So let us read the 187th verse also, and then we will find out the meaning of these two verses, what it's speaking of. What the 187th verse is saying? Bhunkte vichitrasu api yonishu vrajan ayati niryati urdha adha urdhamesha asya eva vijnanamaya asya jagrata swapna avastha sukha dukkha bhoga. So what it is saying? This Vijnanamaya Kosha is without any beginning. Anadi kalaha is without any beginning. What actually it is meant by, we will come to its discussion. First let us go to the literal meaning. That Anadi kala, the Vijnanamaya Kosha is without beginning. Aham swabhava is characterized by egoism. It is characterized by, one of its characteristics is the ego, the egoism. Aham swabhava. Jiva. And it is called the Jiva, the one that transmigrates. As this, that one which transmigrates is the Jiva. So, as we say, it is the Shukshma Sharira that transmigrates. The gross body falls off, but the one which transmigrates is the Sukshma Sharira. The Jiva is the one which is transmigrating. And we used to give an example that how is the Sthula Sharira related to the Sukshma Sharira? Just the way our nails grow, we pare them, we cut the nails, again the nails grow. The gross body is like the nails. The Sukshma Sharira is like the body. Just the way from the body the nails come, we pare them and again it grows. Similarly, so many Sthula Shariras come out from the Sukshma Sharira, like the nail. We pare them off, another comes, birth after birth, the new body we get. So the real body as such, from which the Sthula Sharira emanates, is the Sukshma Sharira. And that, the Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, this together is the Jiva. That this Vijnanamaya Kosha is called the Jiva, that which transmigrates and it carries on all the activities on the relative plane. The samasta vyavahara vora. So this, all the activities in the physical plane is carried by this Jiva. This is the one, because it constitutes of the ahankara. It is the ahankara that results in all the activities. So the moment you get that sense of egotism, from that all the action ensues. So it carries out all the activities in this relative plane. Karoti karmani api purvavasanaha. And through various desires, it goes on performing the various actions. Karmani karoti api. And what type of actions? Punyani apunyani cha tat. Cha. This all the virtuous as well as the vicious actions, the good and evil actions, is done because of that ahankara. The moment that ego comes, all the actions ensues from that. And as per the good and evil actions, it experiences the results. Chatat falani. For the good actions, we experience good results. For evil actions, evil results. So this all is thing which gives the agency, the power to act of the Vijnanamaya Kosha's power to act is being described by all these functions. Not only that, bhunkte vichitrasu api yonishu. That not only in this birth, as we were saying, is a jiva that transmigrates. So being born in various bodies, bhunkte vichitrasu api yonishu. What it does, it goes up and down. this vrajan, it is traveling, life after life. Ayati niryati, it comes, it goes, adha urdham. Sometimes it gets a higher birth, sometimes it gets a lower birth. Adha urdham esha, asya eva vijnanamaya asya, jagrata swapna avastha, sukha dukkha bhoga. So it is this knowledge state that has the waking state and the dreaming state. Because as we were mentioning even previously, that in the deep sleep state, the total mind becomes inactive, dormant, it is not functioning. So that's why only these two states have been mentioned, waking and the dreaming. So it works in these two states. The buddhi doesn't work in the deep sleep state. It works in the waking state and in the dream states. And you may say, that we will come to the discussion, but you may immediately, the idea doubt may come, that how come in the dream state the buddhi acts? That you may say that in the dream I see all the things, incongruous things, which is contradicted when I wake up. So all those things had no meaning. They were all incongruous vision. But we should remember that in the dream state we never thought them incongruous. The buddhi was working in a different way, but it was working. If I have seen a golden mountain in the dream, mountain made of gold, it was the buddhi which nishchayatmika, which determined, yes, it is the mountain of gold. So though this the buddhi in the swapna is contradicting the buddhi in the jagrata, but in both the states the buddhi is active in its own way. But in deep sleep state, of course, the question of even ahankara doesn't come, the jnana vritti doesn't come, so the question of the functioning of the Vijnanamaya Kosha doesn't come. So that's why only in this jagrata and in the swapna avastha, this Vijnanamaya Kosha is working. And what? And it experiences the joy and grief, sukha dukkha bhoga. As per the papa and punya, as we were mentioning, that is because of its virtuous and vicious acts, it will get the results accordingly, and as it gets the results, it experiences joy and grief according to the results. So that's how the Vijnanamaya Kosha operates. It becomes operative through all these functions. So now let us go one by one to all these various functions which has been spoken of, all the various aspects which has been spoken of. So first is Anadi Kala. That why it is called Anadi. Now the origin of Jiva can never be determined. That when it originated, we can never determine. That's why it is called Anadi. It's not that it has not originated. Of course it has originated, but I can never determine when it has happened. Just the way, of course, when I am sleeping, at some point of time, I have started dreaming. But if someone asks, when exactly you started dreaming, can we ever say? We can never say. So that way, the dream also is anadi. In that sense, so you have to understand the terminology in its proper perspective. Anadi, when I say it's beginningless, that doesn't mean that it never started. It has started, but I can never determine when it is started. So that's why the Vijnanamaya Kosha is Anadi, as the origin of Jiva can never be determined. So no one knows where it has originated. So, and then it is spoken of as Aham Swabhava. So the moment, as we again how the ego has generated, the moment the consciousness gets reflected in the body-mind complex. So these are not separate. Sometimes you may think, then you are saying that it is a non-dual Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta. But now you are saying the consciousness is getting reflected in buddhi, the consciousness is getting reflected in the body-mind complex. Then this body-mind complex, the buddhi, are something apart from the self? No. That we should remember that as already it has been discussed, that it is adhyasa, the superimposition. It is the only conscious principle which first is projected as the buddhi, the mana, ahankara. These are the things, first it is projected. And then from that another projection happens in the form of this world. Just the way in the full moon night, that an ignorant person may think that it is the moon which is giving the light. But actually moon doesn't have any light of its own. It is the sun which is being reflected on the moon. Again, that the reflection of the sun on the moon is again reflected on the earth to make the earth illumined. So similarly, the first, from the conscious principle, the mind is projected. And this mind has all the constituents, these 4 constituents: Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara. So all these constituents gets illumined by the conscious principle. Conscious principle first projects it, and then it gets illumined by it, and after that this again in turn illumines the entire world. So this is the thing that we have to be very clear of. It is not that it is speaking of any duality. So it's a projection followed by another projection. So aham swabhava. So what that ego, how it is generating this ego? Ego is generated the moment the mind comes into picture as a projection of the conscious principle. Now the reflection of the conscious principle on this mind stuff generates the ego. What is the ego? To confuse the reflection as the self. Actually there is only one self. Why there are so many jivas? Just the answer is just the way the sun, one sun, reflects in thousands of waves in the ocean to create thousands of reflection. And each wave with the reflection of the sun is just like a jiva. There are so many jivas. But actually it is only one which is appearing as many. So here also this, because of the generation of the ego, that the jiva evolves. There are so many jivas. And what is its characteristics? Aham swabhava. That's what it results in. It results in all the actions. The moment the ego, as we were just now saying, the moment the ego comes into picture, immediately from that all the action emanates. How it emanates? So the way we again and again discuss, the moment the self is reflected in the body-mind complex, it is just like the echo of the self through the body-mind complex. How the actions generate? The moment that echo is there, I confuse the echo to be the self. That example which we give again and again. I am standing in front of a mountain and I shout out my name, and the echo comes from the mountain, and I feel I'm deluded as if someone is calling me from the mountain. The same thing happens here, that which generates the ego. How? That the self, when it generates itself as the mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, and now the self is constantly asserting. What it's asserting? That I am eternal. There is no annihilation for me. There is no beginning for me. I am the Trikal Avadhita Satya. I was always there, in the past, present, future, in all the phase of time, uninterruptedly. That's called Trikal Avadhita Satya. Trikal is the 3 phase of time, past, present, future. Uninterruptedly I was there in all the phase of time. So I am eternal. And another thing, there is no want for me. I am myself ever fulfilled. Like as a transient being, we have want, we have hunger, thirst, that we need something apart from me, something external from me to sustain myself. That's why I am never fulfilled. I am never self-sufficient. But the self is something which is self-sufficient, ever fulfilled. So the self is saying 2 things. I am eternal and I am ever fulfilled. Now that's the thing which is echoing from the body-mind complex. I am eternal and I am ever fulfilled. Now this ego is now results in all the actions. How? Something is saying that I am eternal and I am ever fulfilled, but the moment in the body-mind complex we find that what happens? It needs to be sustained by something extraneous to it. Something external. It needs food, it needs water, it needs air. So that's that example which we give again and again. Even as a small microbe, in a petri dish. I am observing through the microscope. I see they are all randomly moving without any direction. And then I put some nutrient in the center of the petri dish. And then again I observe through the microscope. I see all those microbes have gathered a direction. They are all moving towards the nutrient. What has happened? That in each microbe, the self is being reflected and it is echoing. What's echoing? I am eternal, I am ever fulfilled. But it finds in the body-mind complex just the contradiction that if it is not nourished, it is going to die. If it is not nourished, it is having a sense of unfulfillment. So now it is drawn to us because of this ahankara, this delusion which comes because of this ego, and it thinks itself the body-mind complex. The one who is saying that I am eternal, I am ever fulfilled, is really eternal, really ever fulfilled. That's the self. But it being deluded as the body-mind complex, now the action generates. What's the action? Oh, to realize that eternity, fulfillment, I have to nourish this body-mind complex. So it is drawn towards it. So just see how the action develops. The action is developing. In place of nutrient, if I give some poison, it will run away from it. So all the action at last can be broadly categorized into two things. Either growth mode or protection mode. Nothing else. Anything which is favorable for my existence, that speaks of the growth mode. Anything which is detrimental for my existence, that speaks of the protection mode. I run away from it. Even as a human being, the complicated system, you will find the same thing. This growth mode, protection mode. That our immune system speaks of the protection mode. Our adrenaline rush when we are in danger, that speaks of the protection mode. You'll find that these two never works together. Even in the microbe, when it is running towards the nutrient, its direction is towards the center. When it is running away from the toxin, it is moving away from the center. So these two are opposite. They never function together. Even in the human being, through all the evolution, at last what we will find? The same thing. The growth and the protection mode never works together. That example which we give, that funny example, suppose you have went out for some safari. In a safari you have went out, and in the afternoon, after you're in the camp, you have cooked some lunch, and after having your lunch, you feel a bit drowsy. That's quite natural because all the blood is rushing to the stomach. So your brain is not getting the sufficient oxygen, because with the oxygen is transported through the blood. So as all the blood is moving to your stomach, you need to digest the food. So your body is in the growth mode and you feel drowsy. It's natural. But suddenly you hear the roar of a lion. So what happens? Immediately the growth mode stops. You will find all the blood, all the arteries which are going to the stomach, they were dilated. That's why the blood was rushing there. And all the arteries which were going to the periphery, to the limbs, they were constricted. So that's how the blood flow stopped there. But the moment the lion roars, immediately the adrenaline pump sets in, and what happens? Just the opposite. All the blood which was rushing to the stomach, those arteries gets constricted, and the arteries which are going to the periphery, to the limbs, they get dilated. Because I have to run now. So I am stressed. So this stress speaks of the protection mode. So I run, I save myself, but at the cost of my digestion. I will find that yes, in the late evening I find that I have the problem with my digestion. I have developed distension. There is this reflux, and all those things have developed. Why? Because I have to go to the protection mode at the cost of the growth mode. So this you will find everywhere in all the living creatures. These are the two things. And those two things speaks of action. With the action comes from ahankara. So this is the thing which is being spoken of in the next. After saying that aham swabhava, the moment the ego is generated, then what happens? Samasta vyavahara vora. It carries out all the activities in this relative plane. All the activities. Either it's in the growth mode or in the protection mode. All the activities can be broadly classified into these two modes. All the activities and these two modes, from where it is generated? From the ego, ahankara. So from the ahankara, the samasta vyavahara comes. And then what happens? Karoti karmani api purva vasana punyani apunyani chatat falani. So now all the actions generates, and this results in all the actions, samasta karmani. And now again, when I am doing the actions, it can be this, all the actions can be broadly classified into either punya or apunya. Now what this punya, apunya speaks of? Now whenever this, I have to do some action, the motivating factor, there are two motivating factors. One is extremely selfish, vyashti vasana, selfish. And another is shamashti. So now the creation has been made in such a way that we have to synergize. Whenever there is synergy, that we are thinking of the samashti's welfare, the welfare of collective, and I am giving that the importance. And my vyashti, my individual, this vasana, desire, is controlled, is guided by the desire for the welfare of all. That is punya. All the punya you will find. And papa is just the opposite, where my selfish desire it overwhelms the shamashti vasana. To give an example, that's, you just see the traffic system. That why the traffic lights are there? That I have to go to my destination as early as possible. Similarly, the others also have to go to their destination as early as possible. So as per my desire to go to the destination as early as possible is the vyashti vasana. But now we will find the vyashti vasanas are all, when they interact, they clash with each other. So now for regulating all these vyashti vasana, the traffic system has been met. So when we are in the crossroad, those who are coming from the opposite direction or from the left or the right, they also want to go to the destination as early as possible. I also want, so the traffic lights are there. So sometimes I will find that I always don't get the green light. There is sometimes the red light and there is sometimes the green light. So this traffic lights speaks of the welfare of all, the shamashti. As long as I am following that, I don't break the rule by driving through the red light, I am doing punya. Okay, that's the thing which speaks of the welfare, guiding my, it's not that I am relinquishing my vasana. I am, of course, I have the desire to fulfill my own desire, but it is guided by the samashti. And if I break the rules, then it is apunya. And then what's the result? You will find the result is also waiting for me. If I have broke the rules, traffic rules, then I will get this, I will lose the points and get the fine. And that will result in what? The sukha and dukkha. So this as simple as that. So here is all the actions. The moment with the ego your actions are generated, these actions now can be either punya or apunya. If my selfish desires, vyashti vasana, is controlled, guided by the samashti vasana, then it's all punya. So that's why very simply in our scripture, the papa and punya has been defined. What is papa and what is punya? This paropakara punyaya papaya parapirana. As simple as that. So whenever in our life we find that my desires is in no way compromising the welfare of the samashti, of the collective, it's all punya. And whenever my desires are overwhelming, is just simply a washing off, is just overwhelming the samashti, the welfare of the all, that is all apunya. That if I earn by my living by doing a job, that the job speaks of what? That I am taking care of the samashti, for that I am being paid for that. So that is punya. And if I am stealing, just it's a punya. Why? In both the cases, the thief also has the desire to sustain himself, and the one who is earning in the rightful means, you also have the same desire. The desire is same, that I have to sustain myself. But why one is papa and one is punya? Just because that here my selfish desire is guided by the samashti, here it is not. It overwhelms it. So that's why it is calling that all the actions that generate, that can be either punya or apunya. So this karoti karmani api purva vasana, that as per my past tendencies, that once I have developed the tendency to do papa, now that will create a tendency in my mind to do papa again and again. And if I have already done good actions in the past, that will again create the sanskara of doing good again and again. So these two are the forces. Once you resort to a particular type of action, that becomes the samskara. And that's why it is called purva vasana, that as you have done previously, that's the tendency you developed, and accordingly you go on doing punya and apunya, and you accrue the result accordingly. Chatat phalani. And then this results in various yoni, where that transmigration through various bodies, whether animal or plant or as a human, or maybe some in a higher celestial plane, as a celestial being in a higher plane. So we go on transmigrating through all these bodies. Bhunkte vichitrasu api yonishu vrajan ayati niryati. We come and go again and again. Adha urdhvam esha. Sometimes in a higher body, sometimes again in a lower body, we go on transmigrating. So this also we have discussed, that as per our tendencies, we are gravitated to various planes of existence. So thus ego generates karma, and that karma can be papa and punya. As per the papa and punya tendencies, I developed its result, and not only that, is as per the papa and punya, I get various bodies either higher or lower. So there's two things. One is I develop this purva vasana, that I develop the tendency to do the same type of actions, either papa or punya again and again. Once I do it, that's one thing. And another thing is I get body accordingly. So this two, here in one line it has been described, but in Yoga Sutra very nicely they have described that how it really happens. As we told, that whenever I am doing any action with some klesha, means raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, whenever there is some motivation, selfish motivation behind it, that creates the sanskaras, the klishta sanskaras. Anything I do, immediately the sanskara is formed. Whatever I think, a sanskara is formed. Whatever I do, a sanskara is formed. So there is two types, this jnana sanskara and again this karma sanskara. These all gets saturated in my subconscious mind, and they remain saturated as vasanas. There are so many vasanas, innumerable. That's one thing happening. And another thing, based on those vasanas, another thing is happening. That is called karmashaya. What is karmashaya? Karma ashaya. In Yoga Sutra, this term has been coined. Ashaya means receptacle. That all the actions you do, that in one way, in the individual plane, it is creating the samskaras, the vasanas, and in cosmic, in samashti, it is creating a receptacle where you will be gravitated. To understand this, they will understand that suppose I have developed the tendency to study as a student, because everyone tried to explain, my parents, the society, that if you are good in your studies, you can excel in life. So as a child, most probably I have no tendency towards studies, but because of repeated resolution, anything I do again and again, that gets converted into obsession, liking for it. So gradually I found I have developed a liking for the studies. That's a good sanskara. This sanskara resulted directly in what way? I started getting good grades in my examinations. That's one thing. And again, now this getting good grades, developing the liking for study is something individual. In the individual aspect, it is directly related to what I am doing. But another thing is created that I don't know. What is that? Now in the 12th year, in my final exam, the grades that enable me to get admitted into some professional course, say medical, engineering, whatever it may be. Now, the entire medical college is not the product of my action. It is the product of Samashti. The entire society has contributed to build that university, college. It is not that my actions have resulted. But my good grades now gravitates me to a particular institution. So what has happened? So these two things. One is I've developed these good tendencies, and that has resulted me in a good birth. The same thing happens even in the process of transmigration. All the tendencies which I am developing, that is in the individual level, is getting concentrated in my mind, is getting saturated in my mind as the samskaras of the vasanas. And these vasanas again will be leading me, will be gravitating me in the next birth to a particular body. But another very interesting thing is there, that all the vasanas doesn't manifest at a time. Now, just that as per that body, particular vasanas will manifest, and that will define me in that body. Let us go back to that example of that, say, medical college. That a student, because of his good grades, is gravitated to the medical college. He gets admission there, he starts studying. Now, another thing, a very interesting thing happens. As a student in the school, he had interest in so many things. He was good in all the subjects, whether it is science, maths, social studies, language, everything he was good. He had interest in so many co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities. He was good in them too. But the moment he gets admitted in the medical college, now his liking for the language group, for the social studies, all those things gets unmanifested. The thing which gets prominently manifested is his liking for the biological science. Because that's the thing which is needed as a medical student. And others get subdued. And that defines him. As a student of this medical college, his desire to study the medical science, that defines him. So you'll find a particular vasana is now manifested. All others are there, but they are all hidden. For the time being, they are hidden. So that's how the jiva is defined. So that's the example which we give, that most probably in some previous birth. Why most probably? If the theory of evolution, which we believe is something which is valid, then of course we were in some lower birth as an animal, as a grazing animal. And as a grazing animal, we all had the liking for the grass, the vegetation. Now as a human being, if all the samskaras are still stored in my mind, my fondness for the grass is supposed to find expression. Seeing grass, I am supposed to salivate. But do I salivate? No. Because the liking for grass is not something which defines the human birth. Just the liking for social science is not something which defines a medical student. Similarly here, this liking for the grass doesn't define the human birth. So that is something which becomes dormant. It is there. If I am again born as an animal, again it will be manifested. But in the human birth, that is dormant. It is there in my mind, but it won't find expression. All the vasanas which are favorable for this birth, that will find manifestation. So that's how this punya, apunya results in birth, but all will not find expression in one birth. That a particular preponderance of the desires which has resulted in this birth, which has gravitated to this birth, all those will find expression, and accordingly I will be going through this life. I will be, this word vrajan is being mentioned. I am just traveling through this life. Vrajan means to roam, to travel. And traveling through this life as per all those desires are concerned, resulting in ayati niryati. That's I am taking birth and again I am dying. Sometimes it is resulting going down, adha. Sometimes it is taking me up. And that's how I am transmigrating. It's all because of this Vijnanamaya Kosha, which defines the jiva, the one which is transmigrating. So that's all is happening because of this vasanas. And then asya eva vijnanamaya asya jagrata swapna. And all this which are happening in deep sleep state, all are same. All the animals, you, me, everyone. There is no any differentiation. In a deep sleep, do I know that I am something different from you or from the animals? No. We have no power even to react. As in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna is saying that the king, the all-powerful king, when he is in deep sleep, if someone comes and spits on him, he has no power to react. So, because when the ego is not functioning, he is just as good as an inert object. So, it's in no way functioning as a living entity. So, that's why what it is saying. All these actions are happening only in two states, either in Jagrat or in Swapna. So, this Vijnanamaya functions only through these two states. So, this either this Jagrata or Swapna. So, this is the idea. This as ego dissolves in the deep sleep, it is not functioning in the deep sleep. So that's why only two states have been mentioned. Asya eva vijnanamaya asya jagrata swapna avastha. Through these two states it is working and resulting in sukha dukkha bhoga. So all the actions has fixed consequences. I can never go beyond it. That in the present world, sometimes we say that there is nothing called absolute truth. When someone told Sri Ramakrishna that in the West, the philosophers say that there is nothing called absolute truth. To that, Sri Ramakrishna never gave a direct reply. What he told was very interesting. That eating chili is sure to make you feel hot. So you may say, what's the answer? It's very interesting. That what I do, the choice is mine. As per my tendencies, the choice is mine. But the result, that is fixed. That if, when I am taking my food in a separate plate, some chili is kept, whether I will take a chili and have it along with my food, it's my choice. But the result, if I take chili, I am bound to feel hot. That is fixed. So for the papa and punya, the sukha and dukkha is fixed. That I cannot change in any way. That is bound to happen. So that's how this entire life with this transmigration, everything is defined by this Vijnanamaya Kosha. The moment the aham comes into picture and the buddhi and the aham together results in the action. From the actions, all this transmigration starts, and all the experiences in the form of happiness and sorrow is all the result of this Vijnanamaya Kosha. So that defines our journey through the process of transmigration, lives after life. So that's how this the mode of operation of Vijnanamaya Kosha in details has been described in these two verses, the 185th and the 186th and the 187th verse. So as we told, there's discussion on the Vijnanamaya Kosha will continue for many verses. So each of the aspects we will take up in one class. So now if we go to the next aspect again, so it will be again something too much for us, because it is better to restrict our discussion on one of the aspects in each class. So as this 186th and the 187th verse discuss this Kriyavati, the agency of the Vijnanamaya Kosha, let us restrict our discussion to these two koshas only, to these two slokas only. The succeeding slokas will be taking up the other aspects of the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which we will again take up slowly in the succeeding classes. With this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.